The long-awaited and often debated remastered and remixed edition of a Pink Floyd classic has finally arrived. Does it live up to the hype? My review of the new mix of Animals is coming up next on Track by Track. Hey everybody, my name's Kyle and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your first time here, please take a second to click subscribe so that you won't miss future reviews and more. Back in the late 80s, Animals by Pink Floyd was a hard CD for me to get my hands on. I mean, it was available in every record store in town at the time, and remarkably there were quite a few of those back in the day. But I didn't want the regular US version of the album. What I wanted was the UK edition on the Harvest label. See, the chatter on the online message boards was all saying the mastering on the Harvest edition of Animals was significantly better than the US edition released by Columbia Records. Being somewhat of a hardcore Pink Floyd fan at the time, not to mention a bit of a hi-fi snob, I was determined to have the best version of the album available. And this was it. Nothing special to look at, I know. The packaging is pretty similar to the US version that most of you probably had around that time. And it probably was the best sounding version available until around the mid-90s when the album was digitally remastered for the first time, and then remastered a second time in 2011. Compared to either of those newer editions, this original Harvest edition of Animals almost sounds like listening to a copy of a copy. I don't mean to suggest it sounds bad necessarily. After all, I listened to this CD countless times without complaint, but to my ear, there's simply no denying the subsequent remastered releases do sound much, much better, to the point that I never listen to the Harvest CD anymore. I pulled it out for the first time in years to see how it stood up to the new 2018 mix, and found the old CD almost unlistenable by comparison. That brings up an important point about remastered, or as in this case, remixed albums. How much of an improvement or upgrade you perceive when you listen to a new version like this will certainly be influenced by your point of reference. I've covered the coming of the Animals remix extensively on this channel, and I've seen comments on every video saying, why remix this album when it's perfect already? Well, your mileage may vary, I suppose. To me, the sonic improvement between the 2018 remix and the original CD from over 30 years ago is clear as night and day. Clear being the operative word, and I'll get more into that in a minute. The only pre-CD format I've had of Animals is the cassette. And while that was how I discovered this amazing album, even the now lackluster mastering on the Harvest CD was a major upgrade from tape. But I never owned Animals on vinyl, original or a remastered version, so I can't offer any kind of comparison to those. Regardless, whatever you had before is your starting point. And if you're like me, you probably felt at some point that this was perfect as is. When I first heard Animals on cassette, I thought it was perfect. Then I sought out the Harvest CD specifically because it was allegedly the best way to listen to the album, and I was not disappointed. This was perfect. But that needle for the measure of perfection seemed to move incrementally with each new version in the mid-90s and then 2011. Perfection redefined. Each time you may have thought to yourself, it can't get any better than this. Yet here we are with the long-delayed 2018 mix, which once again redefines perfection for this album, and arguably more definitively so than any version since 1977. Now, let me offer one more caveat here, and that's that how good or bad any album sounds will certainly be impacted by the audio gear you're playing it on. Whether it's your car stereo, your headphones, or your home theater system, the quality of your playback devices will have a significant impact on the quality of your listening experience. I firmly believe that even on a fairly cheap sound system, car, headphones, whatever, you should be able to hear how much better the 2018 Animals mix is than anything that came before. I've listened on premium headphones and it sounds fantastic. But even that doesn't compare to how it sounds in a good room with high-end speakers. Incidentally, for me, that's ironically not this room, the music room. It's my home theater room. And that's the space where my Animals listening experience truly comes alive. Earlier, I mentioned the clarity of the 2018 mix, and honestly, I think that's the most important update for the whole project. As much as I love this album, there's always been a murkiness to the mix, like all the instrumentation, vocals, effects, and such were all sort of blending together to the point where the edges, so to speak, become undefined. I think that's actually played in Roger Waters' favor as the years have gone on. With a bit of a sonic fog enveloping the performances, it's been Waters' exceptional songwriting that's been perhaps the highlight of the album. Now, with this new mix, we can truly hear the incredible contributions from Nick Mason, Rick Wright, and of course, David Gilmour, in a clarity that's simply incomparable to the previous versions. Floyd fans have long regarded Gilmour's guitar playing on Animals to be some of his very best, but it has never been able to shine through the way it deserved to until now. The same goes for Rick Wright's organ and electric piano parts. His work on the Wish You Were Here album probably represents the pinnacle of his Pink Floyd career. But with the 2018 Animals mix, it becomes clearer than ever how essential he was to the very character, the essence of the album. Animals is rarely mentioned when discussing Wright's important contributions to Pink Floyd, and if anything, it's the performance that precedes him getting sacked during the recording of the next album, The Wall. But the 2018 mix of Animals certainly makes a strong case for how essential he truly was for the band's sound at the time, even if he wasn't as impactful in terms of composition. Nick Mason's drumming also gets a terrific boost in clarity here. In fact, if there's anything I feel like I'm hearing anew, it's Mason's performance. There's a presence to it now that I never truly felt or appreciated before. Those chugging tom fills always felt merely propulsive to me, but now they feel distinct and organic. I've heard them countless times before, but in this new mix, it's as if I'm truly hearing them for the first time. I mentioned a moment ago how Waters was the star of the old mix, and as much as he's lobbied for the 2018 mix to finally be released, I'm not sure it does him many favors. His bass certainly benefits from the mix, but it's not anywhere near the sonic revelation we get with his bandmates. And in terms of vocals, I don't see Waters benefiting any more than Gilmour does. Both sound much better, though I did still find moments with both Roger and Dave where the vocal felt a little too present, too elevated from the rest of the mix, typically in the quieter passages. But, as I said earlier, the 2018 mix of Animals is nothing if not a referendum on the guitar legacy of David Gilmour. Simply put, he's never sounded better. Unlike the more lavishly produced albums that bookended Animals, Wish You Were Here 2 years earlier and The Wall 2 years later, Gilmour's playing here was allowed to be much more stripped down and back to basics than it had in a long time. He creates epic moments on Animals more organically than on perhaps any other Pink Floyd album. This isn't a masterclass on production so much as a masterclass on performance. And while Waters always gets the lion's share of credit as the perceived mastermind behind the album, it would never have achieved such an elevated level of excellence without the contributions from his bandmates, and none more importantly than David Gilmour. And that's perhaps the key takeaway from the 2018 mix. So if it isn't clear, the answer to the question we've all been asking for many months is unequivocally yes. The 2018 remix of Animals is better, much better than any version of the album we've heard before. It's a new measure of perfection for this music. In the legacy of Pink Floyd, this is an album that always seems to get overlooked, stuck in the middle of the epic run of Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, and The Wall. Those classic albums have each received multiple special editions, including the incredible Immersion box sets, so some TLC for Animals was certainly long overdue. Now more than ever, this is essential listening and an essential addition to your music library, no matter your format of choice. If you didn't grab a copy already, I mean, why? Hey, no judgment. You'll find a full set of ordering links in the description down below. Once again, my name's Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, plus check out some of these other videos below that I think you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.